Art to Wear was born in this spirit of radical change and challenge and this need for self-expression. It was a new art form that used the body as a canvas to animate personal imagery. Yes, it is wearable, but it's not fashion. Yes, there's process, but it's not process without concept. It's the merger of art and life. These pieces are truly storytellers. Sometimes the story is told through narrative, and sometimes it's told metaphorically or abstractly through process. The works are individual expressions of people's experiences. They're human experiences, and they're human stories.
Most of these works took a good year or more to create and became so imbued with the artist's own experiences that they have a resonance that is very emotional.
There was a dialogue between these disparate artists living all over the country who had found their way to the same form of expression. It was the non-elitist, anti-establishment idea of getting art off the walls, onto the streets in a participatory manner. Often the pieces are conceived two-dimensionally first, and then the two-dimensional forms are placed on the body and their graphic quality changes. As the body moves, the piece is animated. You're dealing with two-dimensional tapestry, three-dimensional sculpture, and then you're dealing with a kinetic art form. It's a triple threat. The obsessive nature of the handwork. It is as organic, I would say, as the crochet work, and it grew in that same organic way. The kimono played a tremendously important role in the Art to Wear movement. The kimono offered a broad, flat, graphic surface on which people can present their imagery. It lent itself to two-dimensional presentation, which is art back on the wall, but it diminished the distance between the traditional presentation of fine art and craft.
Many of the young artists in the Art to Wear movement attended Pratt. And at Pratt, students started experimenting with different materials and techniques. There was a group of 5 students who started using the crochet technique for all of their art classes.
The group of 5 was Jean Casacito, Dina Knapp, Marika Contompasses, Sharon Hedges, and Janet Lipkin. Each of their voices is very independent and different. For Sharon, coming out of a welding background, working with the crochet enabled her to participate in the creative process in a very intimate and personal way. Art to Wear is about content, and it's about process, and it's about the innovation of process. One piece drives to the next piece. The early work was very sensual. It was very transformative of the human body. And then the themes grew to reflect the concerns of the times. Mario's overdone jacket reflects his concern with sustainability. Mario used all found, used, abused, and recycled objects. Annalisa Hedstrom dealt with the issue of habitat and species extinction. The areas of brown reflect the oil spills. The white and blue areas reflect the ocean and the foam. The Art to Wear movement is kaleidoscopic. And it's as diverse as the people who created the works. Their stories are so intensely personal. You can almost palpably feel the human heart beating.
Julie Schaffler-Dale understood that what these creators needed was a gallery. She was these artists' champion. She really wanted the one-of-a-kind, the important pieces that had major content and really had presence.
I opened Julie Artison's gallery in 1973. The work was radical, didn't really have a precedent. So I knew that if I could situate the gallery so that clients would contextualize these unfamiliar pieces within the best of creative New York. So that meant at that time Madison Avenue. Everybody in New York inevitably passed by. And indeed, that's how I met my husband. What was very important to me was the voice of the artists. So when I was doing the book, the text is as many of the artists' words as possible. Letting them talk to us about what they meant, why they did it, what were the stories.
One of the things I see in my work is that every inch of it is constantly changing, that there are no repeats, no givens, nothing constant. That each color and relationship of color is moving. I am a storyteller when I'm weaving, moving from one thing to another. I am building a plot that will often work to a climax, a resolution, and then the piece is over.
When you wear the pieces, if it's right, if it's a good fit, not just physically, but spiritually. And if the spiritual fit is correct, it will look good because you will feel good. When you stand in front of something and the hairs go up on the back of your arm, you are having a dialogue with a piece. You are responding to some kind of an inner heartbeat. Linda Mendelsohn works with color and text in dialogue with each other on the knitting loom.
Well, I had all the various facets of nature, heaven, earth, foliage, animals.
Linda's defining voice has in many ways represented the gallery. In you walked in the middle of a busy Saturday afternoon with your, probably a garbage bag.
Well, I unfurled this coat that I had made. The outside was a poem by E.E. Cummings, which I had chosen because it was a shape poem.
When you took that coat out of the bag, I just looked at it and I knew it embodied everything that I was looking for. Having spirit and emotionality, being visually innovative, and yet something you could wear. Bingo, it just hit the jackpot.
I asked you what you would like of mine, and you said, anything you make, I'll take.
Yes.
That's encouragement. And selling. Julie fostered the work of artists. She was very encouraging. She just was able to get all these various disparate groups together and literally make a movement out of it.
Linda Mendelsohn was one of the artists who succeeded in doing work that was viable on some level of commercial and also one-of-a-kind masterpieces, all while staying true to her artistic identity. We have the Kawara cardigan.
This is a very labor-intensive process. Strips are knitted on the machine, and then with an enormous amount of handwork, they're pressed and manipulated into this shape and then stabilized with invisible stitches. So the actual knitted piece for this would be about 3 times as long. And it's all the folding and pleating that gets it down to this size. And it was inspired by Japanese roof tiles.
How'd you come on the idea of Japanese roof tiles?
Just something just gets me viscerally when I see it. That's what inspiration is to me. Something just hits. Most of my work starts with being influenced by reading something like it's so beautiful or it's so wonderful or it's so powerful or it's so important, and I'd like to preserve it in some way that's very personal. Wearing words is very personal. It's like saying this message means something to me. If I could transmit these thoughts and information any other way, it would be equally as valid, but I do it in a way that I'm capable of doing, which is making fiber and fabric into garments. My knitting patterns I designed myself. All my patterns were made of assembling strips and rectangular shapes of different sizes. Knitting is totally premeditated. Everything is planned in advance. There is no spontaneity. Nothing happens without something being punched, something drawn out, something written. My paternal grandmother was a dressmaker, and she did teach me to sew. She lived in the Bronx in an apartment with my Aunt Lily. Aunt Lily was in show business. She was very glamorous, and she let me design dresses for her to wear on stage. When she was 92, she wrote a note attaching it to this wonderful photograph of her wearing a dress that I designed. She wrote, "When Linda was 8, she designed this dress for me, and I always knew she was destined to become a famous designer, and she is that today." I got joy and encouragement, which was marvelous. In college, I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts, but the courses that appealed to me were the ones related to crafts. It wasn't until I saw a knitting machine in a window and all these things coalesced. After I got my first knitting machine, and I thought, why not punch in words? It just came to me one day, out of the blue, I would like to say. It then evolved into something that was continuous. It all comes from just being hit in the right place. Now, with what I'm doing, the inspiration is expressed more directly by sewing. It's color upon color upon color, stitch upon stitch, and this is something that can only happen as you're doing it. My goal is to be as free as Jackson Pollock. I sew an all-over random pattern. On top of that, I then embroider whatever poem I'm going to embroider. I try to keep the curves as lovely and graceful as possible. This is very slick, and then to grab it so you have control, these gloves have little grabbers on the finger. So there's traction here and none here. And that's one of the tricks of doing this, and I learned this all on YouTube. Every bit of it. When I chose the poem on my very first coat, I had no idea then I was predicting my future. The poem goes, "Why do the fingers of the little once beautiful lady sitting sewing at an open window this fine morning fly instead of dancing? Are they possibly afraid that life is running away from them, I wonder? Or isn't she aware that life, who never grows old, is always beautiful, and that nobody beautiful ever hurries?"